Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Pod.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster here on the Nerd Party Network. And on today's show we look back at the year that was 2022. A lot has happened this year, from the slap heard round the world at the Oscars where Coda won Best Picture, remember that, to the rise of the multiverse, the Renaissance, the dramatic cancellation of Batgirl, and it's safe to say that The Rock delivered on his promise that the hierarchy of the DC Universe was going to change, just not in the way that he or anyone else expected, probably. And it turns out that the pandemic was not the biggest threat to UK cinemas. Turns out it was energy bills. And we sadly saw the closure of many independent cinemas, including our beloved Filmhouse and Belmont. I'm Dallas King, and with me to look back through the year, as always, is Lee Hutchison. How are you?
God, that was an exhausting run. God, we really have ran the gambit this year.
I know, it was like I was just trying to think of highlights, and it was like, well, apart from individual films, overall, in terms of trends, it's not been the prettiest picture. Cinemas are obviously still trying to find their footing post-pandemic. Some would blame the films. Obviously, you know, you've got the biggest film of the year at the moment is Top Gun Maverick, although at the time of recording, on the 27th of December, by the time we get to the end of the year, it may well be Avatar: The Way of Water, because, you know, Lee is paying a fortune to go see it on IMAX this afternoon. No, he's not. He's using his Cineworld card to get cheap discounted tickets, so take that, Cameron. But yeah, it's like I don't know what it is, but there's still this sort of thing where it's like people bemoan the fact that all we get in the cinema is Marvel movies, DC movies, and stuff like that, and yet at the same time, people almost seem to relishly quote with glee the fact that films like Babylon only make 3.5 million on its opening weekend, and it's a disaster, and, you know, people don't want to see original movies. Well, make up your mind. What is it? I mean, do we need original movies? Do we not? It's like, and I see people having a go at Margot Robbie, saying, "Oh, she's got two massive, you know, flops and stuff like that." Well, so technically does Brad Pitt. He's in that movie as well. Christian Bale was in Amsterdam. You know, Margot Robbie was not the lead. You know, it's an ensemble. Both of them are ensembles. I don't know why she's coming out for that. She'll have the last laugh in 2023 when Barbie comes out and destroys Oppenheimer at the box office. Ha ha ha. But yes,
I can't wait for Babylon. The more bad news that comes out about it, I'm like, I would very much like to see that. And yeah, I can't wait to see it.
I'm pretty sure people were quite frosty on First Man, and actually, you know what? People have kind of come around on that. You know, it didn't set the box office alight, but you know, not every film can be La La Land.
Yeah, where is this Damien Chazelle hate coming from? Like, people seem to be like reveling in him having a disappointment. Like, I don't know where this has come from. Like, what has he done? Nothing that I can see.
I don't know. I think is it partly just due to the budget, 80 million for an original film? I know people were screaming about.
Wait until people discover White Noise in a few weeks' time.
Well, people were sort of mad at She Said. It was box office bomb as well, but it apparently cost 55 million to make, and no offense to the movie, but looking at the film, it doesn't look like 55 million. But, you know, I think we need to be, but then you get films like Smile, you know, stick to the horror movies. You know, they are small budgets and they make huge returns. Horror is pretty much the only genre which is, you know, box office proof. So, you know, you've always got to start out in horror. That's where we need to start out. But on today's episode, we're going to look back at some of the highs and lows of the year. So our categories for this year are top 5 moments from any movie this year, best performances, biggest disappointment, biggest surprise, and then top 5 films of the year as released in the UK. But I'm going to throw Lee a bone, and you can add in a bonus I saw at a festival or on a US iTunes. Because as we know, I think, Lee, your top two films last year was it Licorice Pizza and something else, which technically were released, Red Rocket, which were released in the UK this year. So to avoid him basically giving us the same list twice, we've had to go with the UK release rate. So we'll see what he comes up with, but that's going to be the final category. So First up is top 5 movie moments. Lee, do you want to take us through your list?
Yeah, I've kind of tried to mix it up a little bit because some of them would be more obvious moments than others. So I wanted to kind of sprinkle in some things that deserved a little bit of a shout out. But for me, one of the best films and experiences of the year was Moon Age Daydream, that sort of charted David Bowie's kind of career. And I think I mentioned it in our review, was that I felt so anxious as it approached his inevitable kind of untimely death, and it was just that moment of like, oh, I hope they maybe finish it a little bit earlier than they need to, and that we won't kind of touch upon his death. And it really struck me, just sort of this experience of a man and his career. And yeah, it was just heartbreaking to watch, especially on a kind of IMAX screen, sort of the end of this generation, and seeing what a unique and incredible talent he was, and seeing that sort of extinguished kind of as the film came along with cancer. You know, he's someone, you watch this film, he is almost otherworldly and alien-like at times, but you know what got him was something so tragic and you know, human to an extent. And you know, just to, you know, you talk about sometimes, oh, you know where these films are going to go, you know, it's not going to be really anything special, you're not going to be surprised. But it's amazing what things like that can do, and how it can kind of really get a vice-like grip on your heart. So that was a really tough one for me. And a kind of wildly other side, the Tinder swindler, where the person that decides that they want to get revenge on this kind of dating app kind of guy that goes around like ripping off women all over kind of the country, she decides to go into his house and sell all of his like expensive designer gear on Depop, which I think a lot of people are familiar with, like younger people selling some jeans and jumpers on, you know, reduced price. She was like, I'm going to just get all my money back from selling his stuff. And just listening to the voicemails that she had about all of his angry rants was incredible. For me, the second act of Triangle of Sadness is one of the highlights of the year, but specifically, and within that, and I'm not just talking about the amazing spewing scene, but the debate between this sort of Russian shit seller and you know, Woody Harrelson's socialist captain, as they debate the merits of socialism versus capitalism, as the ship it sinks, falls apart, everyone has food poisoning. It was one of the just highlights of just an incredible finale. And yeah, obviously we've spoken about this quite a few times on the A24 project, but the Under Pressure scene from After Sun just hits incredibly hard. One of the most beautiful kind of endings and heartbreaking at the same time, and one that will stay with me. But one, I don't know if you've seen this one, Dallas, but have you seen it's now on BBC iPlayer, and I would recommend anyone that is doing anything this Christmas period to watch it. But have you seen My Old School?
Oh, I have indeed. I saw it's online at Sundance Film Festival, and then again at the Glasgow Film Festival. BBC doing a Netflix documentary better than a Netflix documentary.
Yeah, one of these dog wolf documentaries as well. And yeah, I watched it again with my parents over Christmas Day. And yeah, it's one of these things about like a 30-year-old that goes back to his old secondary school pretending to be a young person to get into sort of medical school. And they're very clever through the whole film. Like, they don't show you any pictures or any footage of the time of what this kid was up to. And then they kind of talk a lot about sort of this play that they did, and he was the lead actor, and it's South Pacific. Yeah, South Pacific. And what happens then is like they build up to this thing, and all of them have different memories, that like there's this big kiss that ends the film, and oh, it was just a peck on the cheek, or was it a big snog? And then you finally see the footage, and you're kind of left with, as an audience member, going, oh yeah, I can maybe see how they thought that 30-year-old was a younger person. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Or you're left in horror of like, are you stupid? Like, he was clearly 30 years old. It's just a brilliant moment that really plays with your expectations and builds up to that amazing moment. It would have been so easy to play their hand as much earlier, but they really leave it to the last minute, and I think that made it a real standout moment. And I've watched it twice, and the people I've watched it with, we've all been sat there just like just sitting in silence watching a film. You know, it's so easy when you're at home or with like a partner just watching a film and having a bit of a chit chat. You know, oh, do you want some water? Do you want this, that? But I remember just those long periods of that film, everyone was just like sitting in silence and just aghast. And I think that moment perfectly represented what a journey that was.
Yeah, no, it's how everyone's memories are different. It's like they've got this the girl, and it's herself who was involved. It's like, oh no, it was just like a peck on the cheek or something like that. And then when she's showing the video, you could just see her face going, "Oh my god, what?" And I think it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, there's no way that anyone would believe that. But I think that is similar to the sort of Tindler swindler that you're talking about. It's like you're like, oh, I would never fall for that. But I guess until you're actually in that kind of situation, it's like, well, why would you ever suspect that a 30-year-old person would, come back to school and do something like that? It's like it wouldn't really cross my mind. Well, why would they? There's no way. Why would anyone do that? So I guess, yeah, no, it's great, but it's the way that it sort of plays out like a Netflix documentary. Just when you don't think it can get any crazier, it gets crazier. And yeah, no, I think for me, it was my favorite documentary of the year, and a great Scottish film. And yet it's currently on BBC iPlayer, so it should be on for at least another month or something. So it's definitely worth checking that one out. So yeah.
So what's your moments of the year?
For me, I've got number 5. I've got the tea scene from After Yang, which is just a conversation between two people about tea. But it features one of the most unexpected and delightful Werner Herzog impressions of the year. Number 4 is the reveal of the Batmobile from The Batman. Obviously, we're big Robert Pattinson fans on this podcast, so we were very excited to have, his version of Batman. I mean, we don't necessarily need another Batman, but I think this was a really nice twist on the genre. It went back to his sort of detective roots with a slight sort of emo, gothy, Nirvana, grungy twist to it. But for me, one of the highlights of that film was the reveal of the Batmobile and the following car chase. Just the sound effect of the engine of the Batmobile revving up and the sort of slow sort of cutting back between the car and Colin Farrell's Penguin getting increasingly mad. And then when the car chase sort of kicks in, it was just like sort of hearing that in a cinema screen, sort of all-encompassing roar of this sort of nitrous blue engine, and then the sort of the car chase, which ends with that beautiful sort of upside down shot. It was a real highlight of that film for me. Number 3 is The Cold Open from Athena. Athena is a French film about a sort of similar to La Haine, about a council estate in France, which is completely taken over by youths who are fighting the police, and they sort of barricade themselves in. It's a huge sort of standoff. But this film starts off at a police station where there's a press conference going on, and then the youths attack it, and then they sort of go in looking for weapons and stuff like that, and then drive off. And it's about halfway through the sequence that me and several other critics at Venice realised, I think this was actually all done in one shot. And this single take sequence lasts for around about 15 minutes, and it's the entire opening shot, and it goes from the police station in and out, and then along streets, and then in and out of the various bits of the council estate. And it's just an incredible sort of technical achievement of cinematography and choreography, and it sort of sets a really high bar for the film, which it manages to sustain up until probably the last 15 seconds, where the politics get slightly dodgy. But yeah, no, it's an incredible piece of action filmmaking, and if you haven't seen it, that's on Netflix now, and it's highly worth a watch. Number 2, the 2-minute 15 test run from Top Gun Maverick. Just an incredibly thrilling sequence as Tom Cruise's Pete Mitchell attempts to prove that the mission can be done, and sort of it's the only film that I think I've really enjoyed watching it in 4DX, as you sort of get thrown from side to side like you're in an actual cockpit of an airplane. And then number 1 for me is also the under pressure sequence from After Sun. it's a film which is like a slow build where you're just sort of watching this sort of father and daughter experiencing a holiday. The daughter sort of looking back on it from as an older woman, and then everything sort of clicks into place as to the reasons why she's looking back on it, the why the dad was acting the way he was, and it's just the most incredibly well judged and well edited sequence, I think, and yeah, probably the best needle drop of the year as well, and just like absolutely floored me, and yeah, it's stayed with me ever since. So yeah, they're my top 5 moments.
That's a great list and just the one overlap, which I think we probably would have expected.
Indeed, yes. If anyone's ever listened to the A24 project, then yeah, it was probably coming. So yeah. So next up is best or sort of favorite performances from the year. What have you got for us?
So I have gone with Colin Farrell in Banshees of Inisherin, Frankie Corio from Aftersun, Kristen Stewart from Crimes of the Future, Simon Rex from Red Rocket, Alana Haim and Cooper Hoffman from Licorice Pizza, and my number one performance of the year is Jenny from Banshees of Inisherin, the show pony.
Oh, well, I have an excellent list. I have gone with Ki-Hu Kwan and Stephanie Hsu from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Stephanie Hsu is the best supporting actress from that film. Sorry, Jamie Lee Curtis. I know you're wanting like an honorary legacy Oscar nomination, but for me, the entrance of Jobu Tupaki from Everything Everywhere All at Once is, one. It would have potentially been on one of my sort of best moments of the year. I think what she does in that film is an incredible star-making turn. But Ki-Hu Kwan, who played Short Round in Temple of Doom and Data in the Goonies, he'd been sort of basically out of Hollywood for decades, but came back to do this particular film, and it's just like an incredible performance. It just shows what he could have done in the last couple of decades, and he's just got so much soul and heart and stuff. And also he's got a few action sequences as well. He does it all in this film, and he is quite rightly being nominated and winning every single Best Supporting Actor award at the moment, and I fully expect he will win Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars. And I really hope that they do away with the traditional thing of having the previous year's Best Supporting Actress present him with the award and have Harrison Ford present the award, so we get an Indiana Jones and a Short Round reunion on stage. I think that'd be lovely. And for me, special recommendation for Colin Farrell for 2022, because yes, he was excellent in Banshees of Inisherin, but he also was excellent in After Yang and 13 Lives and The Batman. It's probably, I'd probably say it's his best year ever for him, and his eyebrows.
Yeah, I agree. He's had the overall best of the year for me.
Similar to Andrew Garfield last year, had the best overall year. I think Colin Farrell has had the best overall year, and I think it seems that he could win Best Actor now. I know the talk was Austin Butler because he's played Elvis and he's a real life person, and that always seems to trump out. But then Brendan Fraser was the favorite, but Colin Farrell seems to be winning all the awards. So we'll have to see what happens. I guess we'll have to see.
I think it's possible. I think it's between him and Brendan Fraser, but I think I would give it to Colin Farrell.
Yeah. Well, we shall see. So next up, now I've purposely avoided doing worst movies of the year because that's it's kind of it seems harsh to kick people when they're down. No one sets out to make a bad movie. Sometimes things just turn out bad. But we're going to talk about our biggest disappointments. Maybe something we were looking forward to and it just didn't quite hit the mark. Probably not talking about Morbius, which from the outset looked like it was going to be bad. But Lee, what was your biggest disappointment of 2022?
Yeah, for me, it's if there's going to be one disappointment of a Noah Baumbach, Greta Gerwig high budget release, then I'm probably glad out of the two it's White Noise. I'm hopeful about
I haven't
Barbie,
seen
but
White Noise
yeah,
yet. I'll get to see it in a couple of days.
Yeah, White Noise. Like I was so hyped for this movie. Like brilliant cast. Like Noah Baumbach, one of my favorite filmmakers. Like they've just chucked all this money at him. Like Netflix have given him 80 million. I mean, see people complaining about Babylon. Like, you know, oh, this movie's made this lost money. It's like it's more than White Noise is ever going to make back. You know, I really, really
Netflix
wanted
has
to
no
like this movie, and
concept of money.
no, and the thing is with like White Noise, there are some great moments in it. There's some real highlights. The end credits are particularly probably the best bit of the film. Some of the performances and scenes are just sensational. But yeah, it's just kind of not happened for me, White Noise. I just thought it was such a disappointment. Just, you know, it starts quite strongly and then just probably from the middle onwards all the way through to the end, it just didn't work for me, and I just really found it very difficult to sit through. Bizarrely, you know, I think we probably will end up diving into this one in some form or another on the A24 project, but it does have in the end credits I saw back in October, it did say in association with A24, so that was the first time I'd seen any connection between the two, but it was there in the credits, so we might have to discuss that one. So yeah, hugely disappointing considering all the talent involved. Like the performances are really good, you know, it is a well-made movie, but just one that I just did not enjoy whatsoever.
I'll let you know my thoughts in a couple of days. So for me, my biggest disappointment is probably Jurassic World Dominion. You know, beyond the whole CMI completely destroying the film house in EIFF in Belmont. That's a subject for an entirely different podcast, which we actually have done in the past. But for me, it's probably Jurassic World Dominion. Now, you know, this was, if you think back, I mean, I wasn't the hugest fan of Jurassic World, I think it was called Fallen Kingdom, but it set up a world where essentially dinosaurs were going to be free and roaming the entire planet. We were going to have a situation where it was potentially going to be humans fighting dinosaurs across the earth. You know, that's what was set up at the end of the second movie. It's called Jurassic World Dominion. It's like, world. Okay, we've got a Jurassic World. It's going to be great. And then we get a movie where there's genetically engineered giant locusts eating crops, and then you know, you've got one fantastic sequence in the center where they're in Malta and there's like the illegal black market trade of dinosaurs and dino products and stuff. And there's a chase sequence involving raptors who've been trained to sort of follow sort of like red dots and sort of pheromones and stuff like that. And that gives you a hint of what we could have potentially had. What we then get is all the characters going back to a different park where all the dinosaurs are, and we get the exact same movie we've always had, which is humans trying to escape dinosaurs within a park. And then also 9 main characters survive at the very end, and it's just like, what? You had an entire world to play with and you stick everyone back inside a very small confined space again, and that for me is why it was the biggest disappointment. It was a bad film, but it just squandered a huge opportunity, and I think that is what was unforgivable for me.
Yeah, like it to this day, it still boggles my mind about the locusts part. Like it was the concept everyone probably wanted to see since, like, I always remembered reading like old school magazines, remember magazines, after sort of Lost World, and it was like, right, what's the third Jurassic Park movie going to be? And all this talk about they're going to be roaming free and what that's going to be like, and it was just painfully boring, and there's no way a Jurassic Park film should be boring.
That is the biggest crime for me, is when a film is boring. It's like, you know, I prefer a film to be actively fantastic or actively bad, because at least, you know, there's something to sort of hold on to. But when it's just boring and dull, and, you know, I get rehashing, and it's like, oh, Dodgson, Dodgson. We got Dodgson here. See, nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's like, oh, he got the Barbasol can. How did he get the Barbasol can? It was in case of how did he know where to get it? It's like, so frustrating.
And remember the Clone Girl?
Oh,
I
yes.
rewatched Fallen Kingdom, which is a bad film, but like it's kind of relatively interesting. The idea, like the haunted house aspect, like that's something new, original. I'll go along
It was a
with
Clone
that.
Girl, but then it
like
wasn't
I forgot
really
there was
Clone
this.
Girl. It was like the daughter had, yeah. It was like he'd recreated his old daughter, but no, the daughter had done it herself, and it's like it was the same thing as the Star Wars with Rise of Skywalker. It kept going back on what had come in previous films in order to, rework the story and stuff to fit. This is the problem of having the director do 1 and 3, but then not doing the second one. It's like, you have to have a cohesive story, otherwise it's just nonsense. And I'm sorry, but yeah, sort of Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. Bryce Dallas Howard I like as an actress, but here, the two of them together, it didn't really work. I was more interested, obviously, in the original characters. If it just been Sam Neill and Laura Dern and Jeff Goldblum, fantastic. Yeah, you could have got rid of the entire new cast and just had the original 3 doing what they were doing, and I think it would have been a better movie. But
Yeah, terrible movie. I can't ever imagine watching that one again.
No, and I don't think I will either. So time for let's end on a high. We'll go with our top 5 movies, and here we're going to go turnabout. So Lee, what have you got at number 5?
So I've gone with After Yang.
I also went with After Yang at number 5. Hey, there we go.
There we go.
So why did you pick After Yang?
It's just one of those ones that I think I remember seeing it sort of at Sundance Festival. Like I paid $20 to rent it, set up the VPN, all that kind of stuff, but it was worth it. I thought this was a lovely, beautiful film. But then just seeing it in a cinema, like I just felt so lucky that we had that opportunity with like a Sky Movies film that was on in the cinema, and just like the performances, and there's just an element where like a musician I love is Mitski, and Mitski kind of does that song in the movie that sort of provokes some of Yang's memories, and just I found myself listening to it so many times, more so since it was released at the sort of film festival, just on repeat. It's called Glide, and just every time I listen to it, it is just a beautiful piece of music, and it just makes me think about what a lovely film this was, like an original piece of science fiction with a lot of heart, brilliant performances, and just something really quite profound and lovely to say about grief. And it's one of those films you watch it as an adult, but I think you could introduce young kids to this movie. It might be a little ahead of them, but like the message of it is so simple and so universal, and just another stunning performance from Colin Farrell. It's just a film that's just stuck with me, and one that I think is going to be a staple of years to come.
Yeah, for me it was one that had a really sort of nice message of sort of learning to switch off. This is a family which is basically most of their interactions are through technology as a family, whether it's they've got this sort of android who is a sort of babysitter, cook, cleaner, au pair sort of thing. The parents are sort of working different jobs and sort of conversing via video calls and stuff like that. And Colin Farrell, while trying to find a solution to repair this robot which is broken down because he doesn't want to disappoint his daughter, he realizes the beauty in the world that he's missed by going through the memories that this android has recorded. And like I say, it's just a beautiful thing. It's like I compared it to Blade Runner, where a Deckard sort of rediscovers his humanity through the death of a robot in Roy Batty, and that's sort of what happens here. And of course, it's got the best opening credit sequence in any movie this year, with the dance number, which was recreated quite wonderfully at the Edinburgh Film Festival. And yeah, it was like I remember seeing it and loving it at Sundance, but then seeing it in Edinburgh, I'd completely forgotten about the connection between Haley Lou Richardson's character and Yang, and I was completely blown away by that on a second time, and I completely forgotten about the connection there. So yeah, it's amazing how film can surprise you. And yeah, Sky Movies, I think when we heard that initially back in I think probably towards the start of the summer, we're thinking, oh no, here we go. It's going to be another promising young woman, which is like doesn't get a cinema release and stuff like that. But thankfully, we did get it at the Edinburgh Film Festival, and of course, we managed to get to speak to Gogo Nada and Justin H. Min, which you can hear the full interview on the A24 project. Always promoting, always pimping. So yeah, no, definitely a highly recommended one from both of us. So what have you got at number 4?
I've gone with Red Rocket. So it was one of my favourite films of last year, but officially UK release this year.
Okay, fair enough. If you want to use up one of your spots, tell us again why that is one of your favourites.
It just, Simon Rex's performance is just absolutely incredible in that film. Like, it is just, the film is a force of nature. I just watched him and just been like, I just love the magic that Simon Baker can do of just finding this talent and people out there that maybe time has forgotten. You know, you could almost imagine, he's almost got that touch that you sometimes probably recognize someone like Quentin Tarantino has, and just absolutely sensational from performance, and just everything that kind of went around that film just had me completely gripped. It was easily one of the best films, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to stick by the rules this time. I'm going to go for the UK release dates and so on, and mix things up. But yeah, I just thought, like, a force of nature performance, and yeah, I loved everything about that film.
Yeah, no, I did enjoy it when it came out, and yeah, Simon Rex it's a tour de force performance, and yeah, hopefully I haven't really heard much from him since, but hopefully it is the kind of film which leads to more roles, more high profile roles in the future. So good things coming there. For me, my number 4 has to be RRR, the Indian Bollywood sensation of the year. It is just one. It's the film which I, more than any other, I wish I'd been able to see in a cinema. I think it may have had a few screenings in sort of London and stuff like that, but it's a Netflix release here in the UK, and I highly recommend anyone who's got sort of just over 3 hours to spend during the Christmas period to watch it. Obviously, watch it, subtitled, not dubbed. It's an epic story set in India during the British rule, and it's about 2 men. One is an officer in the Indian Army who is trying to find a rogue renegade sort of rebel, and then you've got a guy who is trying to save the daughter of one of his sort of town's families, who's been adopted, enslaved / adopted by this British monarch. And of course, it starts off quite early on. The 2 men end up, working together to save someone, and they become best friends, but they don't know that they are the person that they are also sort of looking for. And that it's going to end up with them, fighting and stuff like that. But it has so many incredible sequences. It's got a big song and dance number because, hey, it's a Bollywood movie. You need one of those. And it's apparently going to be shortlisted for Best Original Song at the Oscars, and I hope they do get a full sort of performance of that. But there's a couple of amazing action sequences. One in particular, which involves the storming of a British estate, where a truck flips over, and out of the truck comes our hero, but also with a menagerie of animals, including lions, tigers, bears, who all start fighting the British. And it's just incredible. And the amazing thing is, this is only the end of Act 1. It just gets even better and even more crazier from there. It is just one of the most visually astounding and entertaining films which I have watched, and I had a huge smile on my face the entire time. So if you've not already seen the joy that is RRR, please do, because it's one of those films which I feel has the potential to be a breakout hit, but also a gateway film for people to experience Bollywood films, similar to the way that sort of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon did for sort of Asian film back in the year 2000. I think this is that film, and it's got a lot of support in critics groups and stuff like that. Whether or not it will break through to the Oscars, who knows? But yeah, for me, one of the most purely entertaining films of the year.
Yeah, fantastic choice. Yeah, that's one that I've kind of held off seeing because I know the Prince Charles Cinema
Yeah,
in London,
they have done a couple
which apparently doesn't show
they have done a
cultural
couple of
films.
screenings of it, I think. So if you do get the chance, then yes, it's definitely one which would, I think, with an audience, would be an incredible experience.
So I've gone for at number 3, The Banshees of Inisherin. So yeah, easily one of my favourite films of this year. Just I don't know what my expectations necessarily were going in. I was like looking forward to it, you know, in the terms of the actors, bringing back together the In Bruges talents, but kind of McDonagh has been up and down for me. You know, I wasn't a big fan of Three Billboards. I didn't like Seven Psychopaths, but I loved In Bruges.
Who doesn't?
So it was, yeah, it was just one of those things. I just didn't know where I would fall on that film, truth be told. And, you know, I went in and just quite quickly I was like, wow, this is just something special. And it's just, you know, the performances, what it has to say, you know, it's one of these ones of like a very simple story done incredibly well. And, you know, it's one of those things you come away from it. And I was thinking about like best scenes of the year, and, you know, there's so many that I would pick from that film. You know, there's the bit where he goes to the local shop and it's like, oh, that's shite news, or sort of the argument about niceness, or, you know, Jenny's fate, for example, and just the way that film goes in so many great directions. I mean, you know, I thought it was a brilliant scene, you know, the one where Barry Keoghan kind of confesses his love in the end of that dream. But that wasn't even in my top that wasn't even in my top 5 scenes from that film, but it was, and it's still an incredible scene. It's a film that I think could make really strong impact at the Academy Awards and award season, and I just loved it.
Yeah, no, it's in my top 10. Didn't quite crack the top 5, but yeah, no, it's one which, you know, I think people were maybe potentially expecting something a little bit, I don't know, maybe slightly lighter, given just how funny sort of In Bruges was. This is more of a sort of tragic comedy drama with probably more emphasis on the drama. But I mean, it still has some wonderfully funny moments, but it is a more pathos tinged humor to it. But you liked me yesterday, but I mean, the performances are just fantastic. And I think in my review it sort of said men would rather cut off their own fingers with shears than go to therapy. It's just like someone just needed to sit these two guys down, and, you know, because it is a sad thing. I mean, I guess you kind of get it more these days with, I guess, is it ghosting, where people just stop contact altogether and stuff like that. But I guess if you're on this very small island, it's pretty much impossible not to see the person that you're trying to ghost. But I mean, the two of them, I think, are just fantastic together. I mean, we already seen it in Bruges and stuff like that, so it's great to have them again. But it almost does sort of feel like the end of, not an era, but sort of like, it seems like the natural end of these three sort of working together. And, you know, obviously they'll go on and do separate things amazingly well, but yeah, no, for me, yeah, no, it's a fantastic film, and yes, I think it will get nominations right across the board. And yeah, for me, I mean, Colin Farrell has been I've been a huge fan of his ever since sort of In Bruges. Actually, I think that film really turned me around on him as an actor, and I think, yeah, this is probably his finest hour,
and amongst his finest year.
Indeed, yes. So for me, my number 3 is a film that. Oh yes, no, actually, I'd forgotten we were going to do biggest surprise as a category. And this film, actually, technically, is my biggest surprise. Is a sequel to a 36-year-old film, a sequel that nobody asked for, a sequel that, you know, had no right to be as good as it was, and that is Top Gun Maverick, directed by Joseph Kosinski, who did Tron Legacy. This sees Pete Maverick Mitchell return to the Top Gun Academy to train up a group of young pilots for a death-defying mission, which includes the son of Goose, his co-pilot who died in the original Top Gun. And yeah, this was just old school, you know, fly by the seat of your pants, entertaining film. It had just the right level of sort of callbacks to sort of winks and nods and stuff, but it was just so well made and so well delivered. It was just absolutely exhilarating to watch for me. And so, yeah, easy pick for number 3. It's probably the film I've seen the most this year. I think I've seen it about 8 times, about 6 times at the cinema. I think we did discuss it over the summer that it was potentially due to a lack of quality in other films being released that I kept going back to see it again and again. There wasn't much else to watch, but I had a great time every time I did.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I only caught it the once in IMAX, but I managed to get it for like $5 on 4K. Through Apple TV the past few days. So it's one of those ones, if it's not least for just sort of checking out sort of my TV setup and sound speaker system, I think I'll rewatch at some point.
Wait, has it got motion smoothing?
Oh gosh, no. I much like many people that have gone home and visited their parents over the Christmas period, I have made sure to do that.
Excellent. Cool. So what have you got at number 2?
So there's nothing much more to add to this film, but Aftersun, easily the best official release of this year for me. Yeah, you can definitely check out our reviews and interviews on the A24 project to hear my thoughts on that one.
Mm-hmm. So my number 2 is Everything Everywhere All at Once, directed by the Daniels. This was the best multiverse movie of the year. And sees a career best Michelle Yeoh. I mean, even by her very high standards, a career best Michelle Yeoh as a woman who is drawn into the multiverse to help save every multiverse, every universe from the evil that is Juru Tupaki. And it was just so inventive, so well edited, delivered, and it's amazing how they managed to put all this together. I mean, this is the people who have done, sort of The Death of Dick Long, Swiss Army Man. You know that a film is not going to be your atypical Hollywood movie, but this was just something else entirely. I didn't know what to expect, and it over-delivered every single aspect. I know some people, it didn't work for them, but for me, I was completely blown away by it. And yeah, we've got a whole episode of the A24 project to listen to talk about why I felt it was so good as it was.
Well, for me at number 1, it's gotta be Licorice Pizza. It's a film that I'm genuinely surprised. I guess it's one of these ones, like, it was my number 1 film of last year that I saw, so it's kind of, but I think it's definitely the best film of this year. And I'm surprised how little I'm seeing it in top lists of the year from UK critics, for example. So yeah, a bit of an odd one, but one that I just thought, just due to the performances for Paul Thomas Anderson, it was just easily one of my favorite films of the year. It's one I've rewatched, I think, 5 times since I got it.
Licorice. Well, yeah, I might have heard your thoughts on that one before. I can't remember where. Maybe in 2021. I can't remember. Anyway, for me, it was the film that you had at your number 2, but it is my number 1, and that is Charlotte Wells' Aftersun. As discussed, you can get our full thoughts on the A24 project on that, but I don't think there's been any other film which has sort of stayed with me as much as Aftersun did. I think it's a film where you're watching something, but I think the beauty of what Charlotte Wells is she didn't spoon feed you and give you everything that you needed to know straight away. It allowed you to put the pieces together, and then it's it's one of our favorite movie moments of the year, the Aftersun, yes, Under Pressure sequence, where it all sort of crystallizes together, and you realize exactly. I mean, you'd had suspicions and stuff, but when you realize what's happened to the dad, why the woman is looking back on it, she's had her own daughter, she's potentially worried about her own mental health and what that's going to mean. Is she destined to repeat the same sort of patterns and stuff like that? All of it coming together in that devastating sequence, and the use of music is just so I could talk about that sequence in particular for like hours and hours and hours, but we're not going to. But yeah, it's the best debut of the year, the best film of the year, and I really can't wait to see what Charlotte Wells does, what Frankie Corio does next, what Paul Mescal does next. Yeah, film of the year, hands down. And it'll be the first film I see in 2022 because I've already booked the tickets on, for some reason, on the 2nd of January. It's Cineworld. I'm going to watch it again. Yeah, I've seen it about 3 times in the summer. I'm going to watch it again. And then it's on Mubi, I think, from January the 6th. And then DVD and Blu-ray from the 20th of
And
February.
apparently the Cameo Cinema is showing it in 35mm as well.
I did see that, and I was like, if there wasn't train strikes and stuff like that, I might have been tempted. Actually, it's also only on in the evening, which makes it very difficult. But yeah, if it wasn't train strikes, if we'd still had the Belmont, maybe I could have put it on 35mm there, but we don't. But who knows? I guess we'll have to see. So yeah, top 5 moments. I guess we're at the end of 2022. Quickly, what's your most anticipated for 2023? What are you looking forward to?
I only have to wait a few more weeks. Tar. Anyone that's listened to me on this podcast before knows how much I love movies about musicians, and I've avoided the trailer. I've avoided any of the discourse. I've seen 1 or 2 of the memes, but I've muted it out. I cannot wait to see Tar in a few weeks and then just chat about it. I know you've seen it already, and I cannot wait to have that discussion together. This film feels like it's completely aimed at me, and that is just, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, for me, I think it's got to be Dune Part 2, partly because, I guess after seeing Dune Part 1, there was a worry that, are we going to get Dune Part 2? They hadn't filmed it back to back. How's it going to do at the box office? Thankfully, well enough that yes. So it's now been completed. It's all been finished shooting. They finished shooting a couple weeks ago, so we're going to get, the amazingly stacked cast of Dune, plus the additions of Florence Pugh and Austin Butler and Christopher Walken, of all people. So yeah, that's going to be October, I think, around about October next year.
A longer wait for you then.
A slightly longer wait, yeah. I mean, what are you going to have to look forward to once you've seen Tar? Then nothing. And the big question, of course, is at the moment, Barbie and Oppenheimer are releasing on the same day. Which one are you watching first?
Oppenheimer first for me, and IMAX, and then straight into Barbie. But they'll both be getting seen on the first day.
Of course. Yeah, I think exactly the same for me. Yeah, Oppenheimer, and then going into something that looks slightly lighter in tone with Barbie. So that's it. 2022 has come to an end. Hopefully, next year is a better year for cinemas in terms of cinemas. Hopefully, the Belmont in Aberdeen will reopen. Hopefully, Edinburgh will find a solution for Filmhouse, even if it's not in the same building. Hopefully, we can have an Edinburgh Film Festival. We've got the Glasgow Film Festival to look forward to. I believe, Lee, you're going to see Under the Skin with a live orchestra score, which if I'd realised the dates of the Glasgow Film Festival before I booked my trip to New York, I probably would have rescheduled, so I could have done that. But, oh well, woe is me. I'll be in New York for my birthday. I mean, it's not, the worst places to be, I guess. But I will catch the second half, and then we'll have London Film Festival. We'll get more in-person film festivals, which is great. Sundance London, Venice, all that sort of thing. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this year. Let us know what your favourite films of 2022 are and what you're looking forward to in 2023. But we'll see you in a couple of weeks. See you, hear you, listen to you in a couple of weeks when we finally get to, I guess, discuss Tar and find out if it lives up to the hype, or if he's going to have to find something else to look forward to in 2023.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.